I love ya, but you gotta work on it. Alright, so today is Foundation Friday. This is where I try out a new foundation or talk about base related things every single Friday on my channel, whether it's concealer, foundation, anything. So I asked you guys on Twitter what your top holy grail one favorite concealer is. So I'm gonna be going through and kind of giving my mini reviews and thoughts on your favorite concealers. So I thought this also might be useful because it gives you guys a chance to see what the top, I'm doing about 15, so the top 15 concealers from a large number of people. So I chose concealers that were favorited a lot or that there were just a lot of tweets about. So before we get into the video, just a reminder that this Saturday, so tomorrow, is the start of Bidding for Beauty. So that's a charity makeup sale happening over on Project BeShare's eBay page. There's signed makeup brush holders, tons of makeup bundles, and then also you can enter to win a one-on-one virtual hangout with moi. Over on Project BeShare's Instagram, if you want to enter, donations aren't required, but of course we are trying to raise money for Project BeShare, so if you can even donate $1 on their website, if you're going to be entering, that would be very kind. There's about 50 different makeup bundles on eBay that you can bid on. They're running for a week of auctions, and all the info is down below in the description box. And if you have absolutely no idea what I'm talking about, I talked all about it in Wednesday's video, so I will link that in the eye and down below. It kind of goes more in depth about that. As I was editing back that video, oh my god, I just wanted to wipe all of the makeup off my face. That was a rough one. I know, the makeup turned out not looking too hot, okay? So 11 a.m. Pacific time tomorrow morning, bidding begins. Let's get into the concealers. All right, so I'm not going in any order of like the most popular or anything. These are kind of just a combo of all the ones that were most talked about. So let's start out with one that has been around for the longest, and I feel like this was kind of, when it launched, the only concealer on the market that was like this. So my kind of thoughts on Tarte Shape Tape are, when it came out, I do think it was the best kind of like full coverage matte concealer that does dry down. Now that there are so many more products on the market, I think that there are a couple drugstore dupes for this, and I just don't think you need to spend the money on Shape Tape. And they happen to be two of the other products that are your holy grails as well. So I think that if you're someone who discovered this like years ago when it came out and you've kind of just kept repurchasing it, there are a couple drugstore options that are about a third of the price of this that I think are pretty close dupes. And for me, I like the coverage of this one, but it does look a little bit too drying on my under eyes now. I do like these next two that I'm going to mention better than Tarte Shape Tape, but this did seem to be one that was still most loved and most repurchased from you guys. So the two, I would say, pretty close dupes to that. This one was mentioned a ton. This is the CoverGirl Trublend Undercover. I love this concealer. I would say this actually has more coverage than Tarte Shape Tape for the amount that you have to use. You literally need a couple tiny dots of this underneath your eyes to get full coverage. I love this one because it dries down, but I don't find it's too drying on my under eyes, and I feel like a tube of this will just last you forever and a half because you need such a small amount. And I find that if a concealer has full coverage but you only need a couple dots, that's like the ideal situation, because then you're not caking on a ton of concealer and doing the whole big triangle underneath your eyes. You have to use less product, but you still get a full coverage effect. So if you like Shape Tape and you haven't tried this one, you might want to pick it up from the drugstore. I think it's pretty dang close. And then the other one that I would say is definitely a close second, and also this one was one of your holy grails, most mentioned. This is the L'Oreal Infallible Full Wear More Than Concealer. This one, I don't have the right shade for me. It's too light. This one's 320. I could go like a shade up. It's a very highlighted look when I use this, but same kind of thing. I do prefer the CoverGirl over this one, but this one is very similar to Shape Tape. Even like the bottles of these, I don't know if they were going for the dupe kind of thing, but they're all very close. They have like the exact same bottles, and also they all have the super large applicators, like the giant doe foot. Look how big that is next to my under eyes. So I do need to pick up a darker shade of this one. That's mostly why I don't reach for this one as much as the CoverGirl, but I also just like this one a little bit more, something about it. Another super popular one, e.l.f. Hydrating Camo Concealer. So I actually saw this mentioned a lot more than just their normal camo concealer, and I agree. I like the hydrating one better. I do like the camo concealer, but this one I feel like is an even better formula. I would say this is kind of like a mix between Revolution Conceal and Hydrate, which was also one of the most popular ones that we're going to talk about. It's kind of like a mix between this one and the L'Oreal. Like, it has that kind of moisture and it is a little bit more creamy like the Revolution, but it still gives you full coverage, and I don't find that it creases like terribly on me or anything. I get creasing on my under eyes. If you want to know my whole saga with my under eyes and what I do to minimize creasing. I'll link my recent concealer routine in the eye and down below, but that kind of goes in depth about all that. But I get creases, but there are definitely certain concealers that crease less on me and that look better on my under eyes. Again, same kind of thing with the big doe foot applicator. So I would say if you liked the sound of those first three, but you have drier under eyes, maybe try out the e.l.f. one. Okay, so the Revolution Conceal and Define, I would say was actually mentioned a little bit more than the Conceal and Hydrate. I'm gonna go into both. When this one first came out, everyone was saying it was a dupe for Shape Tape. On me personally, this is one of my least favorite concealers I've ever tried. I get no coverage out of this. It basically like disappears on my under eyes. Sometimes that can happen with light shades of concealer. Like there's something in the lightest shades of product sometimes that can have that effect. I don't know if that's what happened with this, but it is supposed to be full coverage and I just found it to be nothing like Shape Tape. It reminded me, if anything, of the Kylie Cosmetics concealer, which I also despise. They just look like chalky and bad on my under eyes and basically just disappear. But I love the Conceal and Hydrate. This one for me gives me full coverage. It is even more kind of dewy and creamy than the e.l.f. one. I just really enjoy putting this concealer on, how it feels under my eyes, just the whole shebang. So I just find myself reaching for this one a lot if I'm not reaching for the next concealer we're going to talk about. NARS Radiant Creamy Concealer. This was another one of your holy grails. Obviously, I don't need to say that every time. If you saw my concealer routine video, this is what I used. This is my current all-time favorite concealer. There is something about this that every time I use it, it looks good on my under eyes. I find that it has the best consistency where it is full coverage, but it's not too thick and too creamy. It's a very just thin, skin-like kind of feel that just stays put under my eyes. It lasts really well. I have no complaints about this concealer. I would say it's more of a satin finish. I don't really care what the finish is with the concealer because 9 out of 10 times I powder it. And if I'm not powdering my concealer, which I do if I'm wearing like light coverage or no makeup look, I don't powder my concealer, but when I do that, I typically use different concealers for that. If you've never tried this, hands down, one of the best concealers, if not the best concealer ever made. Next up we have the Collab concealer, which someone said they bought because of me mentioning it, which this is still one of my go-to concealers. Love this concealer. Collab is carried at Sally Beauty and they make some amazing products, you guys. I feel like they're a little bit underrated. This one I can kind of really adjust to what I want. I can use this on the no makeup days if I just want lighter coverage, but I can also kind of put more on and let it sit there and get full coverage. I would say on average though, it's kind of like a medium coverage, high medium coverage concealer. It's not as full coverage as all the other ones I talked about. So if you're someone who doesn't like a super full coverage concealer, this one again sits really nicely, just has like a skin-like kind of look underneath the eyes, kind of like the NARS one, but less coverage than the NARS one. Glossier Stretch Concealer. So a few people mentioned the Glossier Stretch. This is a newer product from Glossier. I have the shade G12. I actually have a Glossier video coming, but it's not going to be up until July. So this is kind of like a little bit of a spoiler. In my time, I filmed that a few weeks ago now, at least. So I've been testing this concealer more on no makeup days. It is very light coverage. And if you're going for something that is very moisturizing and has that dewy look and that's light coverage, I just still prefer the Becca Under Eye Brightening Corrector if you're around my skin tone. I just absolutely love this concealer for those kind of looks. I find that it does more brightening and coverage than this one, but it still looks like skin and it doesn't look like I have concealer underneath my eyes. If you're someone who likes the kind of minimal look and you're debating getting the Glossier Stretch Concealer, I still think you should go for Becca. Milk Makeup Flex Concealer. So this is a concealer that I did not like when I first tried it, and this one totally grew on me because I found a really specific way to apply this. So for me, this one is super creamy, and at first I was getting like kind of light medium coverage out of it, but this is a full coverage concealer if you do it in this way. What I like to do is put it underneath my eyes. I do create kind of a triangle, so I do use a decent amount with this one. It is very moisturizing and very creamy, kind of like the Makeup Revolution Hydrate one, but you gotta let it sit there for literally about 45 seconds or so before you blend it out, or else the coverage is just going to kind of disappear. At least it does on my under eyes. So I absolutely love this concealer. It's in my travel and overnight kind of makeup bag, so that's the only concealer I bring with me when I'm traveling, and I'm almost out of that one. This is like a backup. Flower Beauty Light Illusion Full Coverage Concealer. another one that I absolutely love, but I definitely have certain ways that I like to use this one. So I like using this on no makeup days where I just want light coverage. I don't get full coverage with this one, but this one is an awesome layering concealer. So I would use this with something like the L'Oreal. I used to use this all the time with the KKW concealer, which I also really like that one. This is a super nice one to mix in. They definitely need to expand the shade range on this. So I still really love this concealer. I'm almost out of a tube of this, so you will probably see it in my next empties video. So a few people said MAC Studio Fix, and I wasn't sure if they were talking about the potted version or this version, but I did try this out yesterday because I was like, whoa, I haven't tried this in so long, like probably years, and I just wanted to see what I thought of it again just quickly. I feel like I still need to continue testing this one, but the shade is definitely too light for me, the shade I have. I have NW10. I think I'd be closer to like NW15. So I don't have my like full form thoughts on this anymore because it has been so long. I did like how it dried down. It was very matte and definitely was on there. Let me know down below if you're someone who tweeted about this. Were you talking about this one or the potted one? Because I also want to try the potted version again just for spot concealing. Maybelline Instant Age Rewind. Totally agree with you guys on this one. One of my favorite drugstore concealers. I was kind of shocked that no one said Maybelline Fit Me concealer. I don't know. I feel like a lot of people talk about that being kind of a dupe for the NARS. I don't think it's a dupe. I think it's very close. But I was surprised that people said Instant Age Rewind but not Fit Me. So this is one of those beautiful, just like rare kind of formulas. It almost reminds me a little bit of Light Illusion in that you can get pretty good coverage. Like I would say medium, high medium coverage, but it just looks so flattering and almost not plumping, but just like very moisturized and healthy looking underneath the eyes. I've always loved this concealer for years. I actually used to use this as my like everyday concealer. Now I definitely don't use it every day, but just because I'm obviously testing so many other concealers. The only downside is the packaging, like the sponge. I don't know how it's been this many years and they haven't repackaged this one. I feel like everyone complains about the sponge, but maybe some people like the sponge. All right, then coming down to the last few here. So the Collection Lasting Perfection Concealer. So I did a video that I think will be up after this video again, where I tried your other holy grail makeup, and this is the concealer that I used in that video. This one I think you can only get in the UK. I got it in Boots when I was there, but if you have access to it, it is a drugstore foundation. It's affordable. This is a beautiful, I would say, mix between like NARS and Collab. I think it's kind of like this child. Again, this one has like a nice kind of more thin feel, but it's not drying and it does kind of set down. I can get full coverage out of this one, especially if I let it kind of sit on there for a few more seconds, like what I do with the Flex Concealer, not for quite as long. I wasn't quite sure which concealer you guys were talking about from Catrice. A lot of people like the Liquid Camouflage, but then I think there's actually a separate HD, I think it's called like HD Full Cover Concealer. I think that might have been the one that you guys were referring to. Let me know down below what your favorite Catrice concealer is, if Catrice is your holy grail one. So I don't think this one is the right one. I don't have the HD Full Cover, the other one. So if that is the one you guys are talking about, then I will purchase it and definitely try it out because a lot of people said that. But if it's this one, I don't love this one. It just doesn't do a whole lot for my under eyes. I find it to be about low medium coverage, and it kind of does that thing where it just like disappears a little bit on me and I just get darkness coming through. So for me, I don't love the Liquid Camouflage. Next up, the AOA Liquid Concealer. So this one I recently tried in a video. This is in the shade Porcelain. I think this is one of their newer products, like one of their newer concealers. I have the other AOA concealer as well, which that one is definitely more very matte, very dry. This one is way more creamy, and I like this one. I feel like it creases a little bit too much on me, but it is very moisturizing. It's super creamy. I don't love packaging of concealers like this. I find myself just not wanting to reach for concealers when they have this kind of just like squeeze tube, because I either squeeze it on my under eyes and get too much, or I have to like put it on a palette first and then dip into the palette. I don't know. I would way rather just have a doe foot applicator where I can just directly go underneath my eyes. So that's honestly one of the main reasons why I haven't reached for this concealer quite as much, but I do think it's nice. For me, it does crease a little bit too much. I could see how if you don't have a lot of under eye lines, how this would probably be really beautiful. All right, so those were all of your holy grail concealers, what I think of them. I just wanted to have like an honorable mention here because as I was going through all of my concealers and testing them all again for this video, I rediscovered the Physicians Formula Insta Ready Full Coverage Concealer. I feel like this is one of the most underrated concealers. I forgot how friggin' beautiful this is. This is full coverage, you guys, like full coverage. It is super creamy, but it gives you the most beautiful, dewy, plump, full coverage kind of look. You can find a shade that works for you. I would say try this again from the drugstore. And I actually put it all over my face as a foundation. I remember a couple years ago when I discovered this, that's what I used to do with that too. It looks beautiful as a foundation. Honestly, I feel like they could repackage this and turn it into a full coverage foundation and come out with way more shades. Physicians Formula, you guys need to majorly work on your shades, like desperately. I love ya, but you gotta work on it. So if you can find a shade that works for you in this, I totally think it is worth trying. I 100% forgot how amazing this concealer is, and I'm reaching for it again. All right, so that was everything. I'm gonna have all the products and all the concealers I talked about listed down below in the description box. If you have a favorite concealer that wasn't mentioned today, let me know down below what your favorite is. A lot of your Holy Grail concealers are also my Holy Grail concealers. So that's exciting. Again, the eBay Bidding for Beauty sale for charity starts tomorrow, 11 a.m. Pacific time. All of the info is down below in the description box. If you wanna know the makeup on my face today, and I tried a different curly hair, wavy hair, whatever you want to call it, method, it's actually coming in a vlog. I'm vlogging today too, and I'm about to film a second video. So lots of videos happening right now. Trying to keep them all straight in my head. But I love you guys. Thanks for watching. See you in my next video. Bye.